Hello everyone and welcome to another game between Nerchio and Sjow here on Tal'darim Altar. Nerchio quickly becoming one of my favorite Zerg players as I've been casting more of his games as of late or as of these past 2 days. Anyways, quick announcement for you guys. If you guys watch me and follow me daily, I will be hosting, me and Matron StarCraft will be shoutcasting a clan war matchup between VV Gaming and Prime from Korea tomorrow night, Wednesday night, StarCraft, 4 to 6 o'clock Pacific time, 7 to 9 Eastern. I hope you guys do enjoy it. Come watch it. Come support us and see which Code S player Prime plays with, and then whether or not they'll be able to handle the lag by playing on the North American servers, and see how they are going to be able to just compose themselves. Sjow in this particular game though spawning as the blue Terran player, meanwhile Nerchio spawning as the red Zerg, deciding to switch up their colors this time around on me, as a barracks now being built over here on the front door. Now game 1 in this series was a very, very interesting matchup where Sjow had trained up a lot of Hellions, and those Hellions were looking to deal a large amount of damage, but the sheer number of roaches and the timing and not knowing that his opponent was getting roaches really hurt him in the end. Roaches have been making a strong comeback, especially against Terran players, as many Terran players wasn't expecting roaches, and was able to go for Hellions, but roaches really counter Hellions, especially as roaches now have that range of 4. I remember back in the day with a roach range of 3, Hellions could perhaps kite a roach if they were very, very micro intensive. That is no longer the case, as roaches on creep move fast enough in order to walk up to a Hellion and attack it. The roach for some reason doesn't take as long of a time to acquire its target as a Hellion does. Anyways, we have Nerchio opening up with a hatchery down here at the natural expansion. I believe that was pretty much another 15 hatch. Meanwhile, the Overlord now flying over and making its way in. It should be able to spot the supply depot in just a moment. There it is. Sees the SCV, sees the supply depot, and now a command center most likely will be built down over here. So an 18 command center now being set up. So an 18 command center by Sjow. It is going to be no gas, so we should not have any early Hellions. And we'll see what the Zerglings do. Zerglings will be coming out in just a moment. You can see that the extractor is up, but for some reason not mining or harvesting any gas from it, as it currently just sits there off on the side. A drone now will be able to return all the way home. The Marines now making their way down over here. We'll be watching that low ground as that command center almost halfway done. It will be halfway done in just a moment. Right? Okay. Right there. What an important thing to note is that the hit points on a building doesn't equate to how the percentage that a building is done. So if it's a 1500 hit point building, 750 hit points does not mean it's halfway done. It still has a little bit more time than that, since whenever you put down a building, it is initially given some hit points and some shields in order to compensate. Sjow now setting up a front door here, getting up one barracks. He may get some additional barracks as well in order to try to get a wall off, but the Zerglings are going to be able to swarm in. There are a decent number of Marines, and the Zerglings being forced to pull back there, as they do not walk fast enough in order to surround their target very easily. A supply depot most likely will be added here as well, as that would be able to finish off the wall in, as we are now going into a factory. So we are going into a factory now. We are getting double gas by Sjow. Harvester count 24 drones compared to 21 SCVs, but things are going to start to go in favor of Nerchio, as Nerchio will not receive any early harassment and will be able to power drone rather easily. So you're going to see him train up about 8 to 10 drones in the next minute or two, or in the next 30 seconds, I should say. And with that, he will be able to surpass Sjow even with his orbital commands. And in terms of overall harvesting, you can see currently Sjow does have a slight advantage because of those mules, 2 mules, giving him about a 240 resource advantage, as he is getting gas while his opponent is not. And now there's one factory being built over here as well. Zerglings, power joining 3 drones now being trained. Overall drone count 37 compared to 28. As I mentioned earlier, more drones most likely will be added. Nerchio does have 4 larvae here and a decent, I would assume, a decent amount of larvae between, 6 larvae between the 2 hatcheries, and continuing to now train up Zerglings to make sure that he does not get caught out of position. There is an Overlord now in the air, and the Overlord, I'm not sure if it was able to spot these 2 buildings. Yes, it was able to spot the double starports. So he is now teching the tier 2. He most likely will get an evolution chamber as well. But the timing on this will allow him to be able to train up an overseer if he is going into double banshee play. So Sjow going into 2 base double banshees with cloak most likely. That is the reason why we are teching to tier 2 in order to upgrade an overlord into an overseer, as the Zerglings now going after a couple of those Hellions. The Hellions easily taking down those Zerglings. A swarm of Zerglings now making their way off across the field, gonna try to come all the way around that far side. Meanwhile, the Hellions looking to drive up and into this location here, not going to see this base here, so he has to believe that he is even on expansion. She just doesn't know how much damage or how many drones his opponent has. Sitting on 44 drones, Zergling's now able to surround and take down multiple Hellions once again, as the double Banshees are now being started, but no cloak research yet. And that is a bit of a surprise, since he is sitting, there he goes, finally getting that cloak research, but it's not going to matter. The spore crawlers are already being built. Nerchio having 2 spore crawlers here. Another spore crawler should be added here as well. Yeah, there it is, and we should be getting also perhaps some overseers. Zergling's now looking to take down these rocks here. 2 Banshees are already in the air, 2 more to follow. That cloak research will be completed by the time these 4 Banshees move their way across the field, but I don't know how much damage they're going to really be able to deal. Nerchio should consider getting into a Spire right now, as that would be the perfect counter, getting Mutalisk. It does take a little bit of time for that Spire to complete, but he does have some Queens which will be able to fend off some of that early aggression as well. Going into a 3rd Queen, and now going into an Infestation Pit, so not even bothering to go into a Spire, instead going for Infestors, and we'll be able to get off some fungal growth and perhaps even tech to tier 3 before going into a Spire. Cloaking field more than 2/3 of the way completed. Hellions now with dominating map control, able to clean up many of those Zerglings that are that get caught in open field. And now 1 Hellion driving up a little bit too far. You can see that the Hellion's now trying to finish off the rest of those Zerglings. Zerglings going to be able to get some damage onto those Hellions. Down they go, as 4 Banshees now make their way out and should perhaps shut down that hatchery. It doesn't look like they want to reveal it, but the Spore Crawler is already there. So 1 Spore Crawler already there, getting in some damage. You can see that the Queens are now pushing off over here, and now in comes a Cloak going after Queens, but the Queens are getting transfused. Nicely done, but one is already down there, and they're now finally backing off. There are no Spore Crawlers along the backside here, so that is going to be a bit of an issue, as the Banshees are now just taking this down. There is a Spore Crawler. The Spore Crawler needs to get focused down. The Spore Crawler is not a detector as it unroots. In comes an Overseer, as well as the Queens are now walking in between these 2 bases. This is a problem. 1 Queen may get taken down. Yes, there goes 1 Queen. Another Queen may get taken down, but constant transfusions keeping it up as another Queen gets taken down. So 2 Queens against 2 Banshees, and it looks as though, yes, Nerchio going to survive this, as this 1 Banshee is the only one that is left. Not enough damage was dealt. Harvester count 56 compared to 48, as Zerglings are over here as well, and not quite sure what these drones were doing. Yeah, these drones getting all gung-ho, wanting to win the ward, didn't know that they should be mining minerals instead. As we are now getting another Spore Crawler at this particular base. You can see we are getting some Infestors. We are most likely teching the tier 3, or will be teching the tier 3 in just a moment, as soon as the Queens are done. As finally a creep being added between these 2 bases, allowing for faster movement between the bases, especially for those Queens. Marines, Marauders, Marines just being trained up. Combat Shield now being added. Command Center, Orbital Command will be landing off. Army composition much larger for Sjow, as he has so many Marines and Siege Tanks, but he doesn't have that many upgrades. We are going into a Hive Tech and also adding a Greater Spire, the Spire. The timing on this tells me that he should be going into a Greater Spire once again, as the Hellion is now down over here. Siege tanks without siege tech. So we'll see what these siege tanks are really able to deal or do, as there are a lot of infestors here. The fungal growth followed by some infested Terran. That's going to be a very, very short day for that Banshee. Are we going to get another fungal growth? There it is. Another fungal growth taking down that one Banshee there. The infested Terrans don't have any unit kills, but the infestor was able to get off that kill there. Combination of armies, we can see the Terran player still has a larger mineral army, a slightly smaller gas army, but the income of the Zerg sitting at 62 drones a minute, and now training up an additional, well, at one point was 7 drones there. Another command center now being added as well. Sjow looking to try to expand and not fall behind in the economic game, but this is going to be rather difficult. The Spire and the Hive Tech now completing almost simultaneously, so we should be going into that Greater Spire there and now going into Corruptors. A Greater Spire does take a little bit of time to morph into play once again, as Zerglings now making their way through. Zerglings now swarming into the base over here, and now the infestors may be able to get off a couple key fungal growths. Are they going to be able to catch this is the key question. There's one fungal growth catching a lot of those siege tanks. The siege tanks need to siege up in order to get enough defense there and try to push those units back. Another hatchery being placed down here, so Nerchio, not wanting to fall behind on bases, quickly gets up another hatchery, so it is going to be 4 bases to 3 bases in just a moment, as we are now sitting on 68 drones compared to 40. The Greater Spire, about 2/3 of the way completed. We already have 6 Corruptors in the air. A lot more Corruptors should be added as well. We are running off of 6 gas for Nerchio. Meanwhile, Sjow is also running off of 6 gas, finally transferring some SCVs over, but he doesn't have the right amount of workers to really support this many bases. He really needs to get more. Nerchio sitting at 162 over 192, as the Greater Spire about to be completed. Infestors should be pushing out in just a moment. And the Greater Spire, there's that one fungal growth. The Cloak was deactivated for just a moment, as that fungal growth did hit him. And now in comes another murder of Broodlords. 6 Broodlords, more Corruptors once again. And if you take a look at the Zerglings are upgraded 1/1. So those Broodlings will have a little bit more longevity to them as well. As the Queen's trying to battle it out, this one poor medevac getting shot out of the sky after a fungal growth hits, as Zerglings getting destroyed here, and now drones now trying to be transferred. Broodlords now making their way in, and this is going to be the problem that we saw in the previous game. Mass Broodlings making their way in, and Sjow now in a desperate attempt to retreat. There are no Vikings at all. Zerglings and Infestors now moving out. There's the fungal growth. So much damage to be had, and Nerchio just completely schooling Sjow. But we are getting drops in the main base here. So there's a drop over here, and now a mass Marines over here. So Nerchio taking a bit of damage himself. 31 workers versus 21 workers killed. 58 drones versus 48 SCVs. The Marines are trying to fend off, and it looks like they will be able to take at least this hatchery down and a lot of workers down. The Corruptors now going after that medevac. The Marines most likely will just drop out of the sky, knowing that there's not much that they can really do, going after as many drones as they can. Zerglings and Roaches once again coming back over as another hatchery being rebuilt. Yeah, being rebuilt there. 2 Marines trying to fend off the swarm of Roaches. That's not going to be a very pretty sight at all, as the Roaches finish them off, and now that medevac down to 58 hit points. There are 2 siege tanks here, but those siege tanks not long for life at all. Broodlings quickly coming in, destroying the siege tank and their fortified position, as 7 Broodlords are moving out to take to the skies. I don't see any Vikings yet. There are no Vikings at all. The Zerglings now swarming after those Marines. And we should be getting Broodlords making their way into the front part of that army. The Broodlords, no weapons upgrade, but it doesn't matter, as those Broodlings have weapons upgrade. Marines may try to stim and come down that ramp, but that is not going to work out well for them at all, as the Broodlords looking to get a lot of damage, and they could utilize this high ground position here very, very well, making it so that the Marines, with their shorter range, unable to deal any damage at all. Vikings now finally being trained up, but that's not going to account to very much at all. The Vikings now, 4 Vikings in the air going after those Corruptors. Broodlords just swarming in against the rest of those siege tanks. All the front siege tanks getting destroyed. Marines now focusing down a couple of those broodlords as siege tanks are also rolling in, but Nerchio sitting on such a massive army now, dealing so much damage. You can see another counterattack by the Terran, but it's not going to really account for much as the broodlords dropping those broodlings and dealing so much damage. The Vikings are getting cleaned up by the leftover corruptors in the air. They can then in turn become broodlords, and there's the GG by Sjow. So Sjow losing game 2 in this series between Nerchio and Sjow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.